Hello and welcome to Africa Prime. I'm Karima Brown. He is a titan of the African ITC landscape. He's drafted South Africa's telecoms blueprint and was instrumental in the privatization of Telkom as well as the corporatization of South Africa's public broadcaster. His name, Andile Ngcaba, Executive Chairman of Dimension Data Middle East and Africa. Andile, thank you so much and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, we've seen that South Africa's ICT industry is ranked about 20th in the world, accounting for about 0.5% of worldwide ICT revenues. Given our size and our expertise, is this ranking a good place to be? Should we be satisfied?
I don't think in ranking you should be satisfied until you're number one, probably. That would be just my preliminary way. But look, if you look at where the world is today, I mean, and not look at South Africa, but look at a region. I think as a region, we have done extremely well. As a region, we have grown from almost nothing in 1990. In 1990, people would say there are more telephones in Manhattan than in Africa. I mean, imagine how small Manhattan is.
But talking about numbers, Africa has still the lowest penetration of telephones, 14%, compared to a global average, which is at about 52%.
No, but if you look at mobile communications, we're way above that.
What is the current figure for mobile?
I mean, the population of Africa is 1 billion people, and we have more than 700 million mobile phones. In fact, we are planning to celebrate 1 billion mobile phones in 2015, 2016, somewhere there, which will reach 100%. I think the other number is more fixed telephony, which people don't use anymore. I think the number that we should talk about are the mobile devices, which almost everybody has. I mean, these numbers I'm talking about are published almost by every institution, whether it's research institutions, the ITU, GSMA, and respective research organizations. We have just passed over 700 million mobile devices.
So the picture very optimistic compared to the low base of which we came in the early 90s.
If you remember, almost in 1990, at the beginning of mobile communications, almost everybody in the world started from zero. And compounded annual growth in Africa of mobile broadband is way over 300% today. So there is huge growth in mobile broadband. There's a huge growth in smartphones. There's a huge growth in connectivity, in particular in rural community. Just to go back to your question, where are we today? Yeah. I think as Africa, we are almost, if you take Africa's population, that is 1 billion, we are doing extremely well. I mean, I would really want to put a peg and say, me and you, we must sit and celebrate 1 billion mobile phones in 2016, which I can guarantee you we will reach 1 billion mobile phones.
Now, what do you ascribe this rapid growth to? I mean, is it a combination of the fact that, the continent is opening, we're yielding the dividend of democratization? Exactly. What is it that would characterize this growth?
I mean, with about 54, 55 countries, I mean, that we have in the continent, each country has an average of between 3 and 4 mobile operators. That's relatively, what one would say markets have been opened. I mean, there are few countries still where you have markets not opened. I mean, like countries, I mean, I think where you have one operator still providing mobile communications. I think in the next 4 or 5 years, if some of these countries open up, we will actually see, the continent reaching clearly 1 billion mobile phones. Now, the most interesting thing, at the same time, if you talk about ICTs now in general, not only mobile phones, I mean, reports have been published where, we are lagging behind countries like Kenya, for instance, and countries, I mean, where the adoption of broadband and ICT services in general by communities and or the utilization of internet. I think we as South Africa are lagging behind countries like Kenya, countries like Egypt, for instance, and countries like Nigeria.
And what do you ascribe that lag to? Why are we behind, considering that South Africa is still the largest economy on the continent?
I think there are a number of things. I mean, I think we have not developed our skill enough to match the requirements of the economy, the requirements of the industry. I mean, if you, just to take one example, everybody talks about this application, that application, and that application. I mean, Kenya is known of M-Pesa, for instance. This is a mobile transaction application that is being seen as an example in the world. I think we need to develop a lot of young people so that they can be able not only to be consumers of bandwidth, but to contribute in things that they've built on the internet, whether for health or for community development or things for health, for education, and a number of applications, because almost every young person today will have some BlackBerry or will have some feature phone or any phone. We need, I mean, a lot of people, if you ask anybody, when kids ask for money, they want to buy bundles. They don't say they want to develop an application and load it onto the internet. We need to encourage a lot of people not to be consumers of the internet, but to contribute information and data and applications. Whether it's, for instance, I mean, if you take West Africa, countries whereby people have got open markets, you find the best fish, somebody who is fishing every morning, they will put in the fish on an SMS platform. So these are things that we need to be doing and almost demystify technology so that it gets to the level of being used by ordinary people.
Now, to be able to get that involvement, obviously you need frameworks, regulatory frameworks that is conducive to fostering that climate of investment. Given the fact that we've got such diverse countries with such diverse regulatory frameworks, what are the main challenges in terms of getting a regulatory framework continent-wide that will in fact engender the kind of rapid growth that we're talking about?
I mean, there are a number of issues. I'll talk about two issues that are currently, being discussed in various parts of the continent, including us here. One in mobile and one in the broadcasting space. If you take in the mobile environment, right, everybody wants to have faster speed. You want to watch YouTube. You want to watch CNBC on a mobile device, right? Now, in order for us to do that, do we need to build multiple infrastructures, or do we need to build one infrastructure and have many service providers on that infrastructure? This is what is being debated today. I mean, there are two views that you see in the market in different governments to say other people are saying we need what is called, for instance, an open access platform, whereby you don't build infrastructure for yourself and say it's only for me, but build the infrastructure so that it can be used by many people. I mean, this is the model that Europe has adopted. This is the model that Asia is adopting. This is the model that Latin America is adopting.
So certainly regional integration is a key to
regional
getting that
integration,
kind of
common infrastructure, shared infrastructure model, and a lot of development and speed by regulators. Because as you know, if you develop a business plan now and you want to execute on that business plan in 2013, and regulations delay by 2 years, you can't take the same business plan that you have developed in 2012 to be executed on 2013 and take it as it is, because the market conditions 2 years later would have changed. So certainty is what people are looking for. It's not necessarily about do it tomorrow, but we need to have certainty in the way in which regulations or regulators operate.
So people need to actually take a long-term view. I mean, we know that governments have to seek mandates, and often you have a change of political leaders in different countries, but you do need certainty in terms of policy development.
Yes. Certainty, even if something you say you will do it in 2014 or you will do it in 2015, as long as, people operate in an environment where there's certainty, that it's not about do it now, it's simply about certainty. Because these models are complex, and honestly, regulators and government, they need a lot of time to do some of these things. But when you go public and say, we will do this, you need to give certainty to the market so that people then do the planning on the basis of the date that has been published. I think this is what in the continent and in the country a lot of people are grappling with, to say When is 4G going to be
Let's talk
licensed?
the South African example around certainty. We've had the goalpost being shifted on the migration from analog to digital, consistently, and we know how that is dragging us back. What, in your view, is contributing to this constant delay, and what is the impact of that delay on growing this industry and, in fact, on the economic well-being of the continent?
My view is that there's nothing called the best policy, really. I mean, all policies will be seen from one angle to the other to say that this policy is good, but as long as it represents public interest. And there will always be, but as long as we make a decision and say, here's a policy, this is how things are going to go forward. Even, for instance, if you take this digital migration, the issue is that how many channels will digital infrastructure provide? And now, digital infrastructure can provide 20, 30, 40 channels. To what extent do we want to liberate and allow, for instance, cities to broadcast, allow communities to broadcast, allow provinces to broadcast, or allow, much more macro, commercial, and public broadcaster? These are things that require certainty. Now, can I say something? If we don't move fast, you know what's going to happen? IP television, what is called internet television, is going to take over.
Yeah.
And people will opt for, using internet as a way of building their own television channels rather than, the digital terrestrial infrastructure. I think this is, to me, what's going to happen. In my opinion, if we can build broadband, fiber on the ground at the speed at which we're doing, we are going to have IPTV sooner than migration to digital terrestrial television. I think that's how I see it. So the issue is certainty, and the issue is speed, and the issue is ensuring that we can grow this market. So Africa is doing well in general. I think if we can be certain about things such as LTE, when is LTE going to come? This is the 4G spectrum. If we can be certain about this digital migration, exactly when it's going to happen, then people build business models and business plans exactly based on that certainty.
Okay. After the break, we continue our conversation with IT financier and entrepreneur Andile Ngcaba.